pictures and patterns put into words that stream across the page, capturing life as soft-spoken.
Hey everybody, Jane here, and we're here today with a recent reads video. For people who are new to my channel or haven't followed me for a while, I have not been reading very quickly, and so instead of doing monthly wrap-ups, I have been doing recent reads instead. These are the books that I have read since the last time I came to you and talked to you, and hopefully as we get into 2023, I'm hoping to have a better reading year. Last year was rough. We had 4 deaths of friends or family members, and I just wasn't in the headspace for books. It was a really rough year. So hopefully 2023 is a better year. I really need it to be a better year. But anyway, so I had, of the books we're going to talk about today, I have 1 DNF, and then I had 4 books that I read physical copies of. One of those copies I don't have with me, and then 1 was an ebook. And I don't read a lot of ebooks. That's something I probably need to do more of. I had said in the past that I wanted to do that because I have a ton of books on my Kindle. I love to collect books, but I don't get around to reading them very often. So we'll see if this year I can read more digital books, but I did finish 1. Let's start though with my DNF, the only recent DNF I've had, and I was really disappointed because I'm not reading very much, to start a book and not finish is really frustrating. And that book was Every Last Sphere. So I didn't necessarily think this was a bad book. It just was a book that in my slumpy state was not for me. For anybody who doesn't know, I know this was fairly popular. I think a lot of people had heard of it. It is about a guy who finds out that his family has died in Mexico, mysteriously. Initially, he's told it's a gas leak, but then there's, hints that it might be something more. The only person in his family that has not died is his brother, who is in jail for murder, so he was not in Mexico with the rest of the family. And there is a possibility that what happened to his family in Mexico could be related to what happened to him or to his brother, or the situation with his brother and the murder. And I didn't get all the way to the end, but I watched a spoiler review, so I kind of think I know what happened. But this book was just moving a little too slow for me. Slow is just not my I don't like slow. It was too slow. There were too many points of view, and the timeline wasn't linear. And again, if I was in a really good headspace, I probably could have handled all that, but I wasn't in a good headspace, so I didn't. All right, the next book I'm going to talk about is going to be one that I don't have a physical copy of, and that is Mad Honey by Jodi Picoult. That book is about Olivia. It's told in the perspective of Olivia and Lily, and Olivia's timeline goes forward, and Lily's timeline goes backward. Olivia is a mother whose son is accused of murdering his girlfriend, and Lily is the girlfriend who is the murder victim. And I ended up giving that book a 4 out of 5 stars. I love Jodi Picoult. She is incredibly hard-hitting. She does a lot of complex topics, and I really loved that in Mad Honey. I am going to do a spoiler review later with some elements of it, but I did want to point out that Mad Honey is positioned as a story about a courtroom drama. Did the son kill the girlfriend? And that is what it's about. But around page 200, there's a big reveal that kind of gives us a sub-story, a different story going on, and I loved it. I knew what that reveal was. I had a friend who'd gone into the book not knowing, and we are similar enough that she also loved it. But I think there are a lot of people who that might not be a reveal that they will feel like they want to read. So I just would say, if you have any views that you would not want to follow a person through a struggle they were having with their identity, maybe look at the book and make sure that it's what you want to read. I loved it. I loved that additional story, and I thought it gave it a lot of depth. But again, I realize that may not be for everybody, and I didn't know going in how much of an influence that was going to have on the book, and particularly like Lily's timeline. So the things I loved about it, I loved that it was interesting. I loved that Olivia wasn't sure if her son was the killer or not. And just overall, Picoult is wonderful. I did feel kind of on the downside that when we find out what actually happened, I didn't love the reveal. I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was inappropriate to the story. I thought it was, I understood why they did it, and they were trying to be poignant and this and that and this, but I just didn't love it. I was like, oh, that's kind of, So, Mad Honey, worth the read. The next book I will do is also a digital one, and that is Unicorn Western. So, this one, there is a fantasy world that I don't fully understand all of the rules about. Unicorn Western, I read the first book, not the whole series. It's a multi-book series. There's this world. It's a Western-esque town, and we start the book with a wedding happening, and the guy who is currently the sheriff of the town, he is about to get hitched, and when he does, he is going to give up his position as sheriff, and that also will end his relationship with, not a romantic relationship, but his work relationship with the unicorn that is his faithful steed in this western town. And he is about to get married, but a big bad comes and sets off a chain of events where now he has to basically decide, okay, do I want to save this town and go fight the big bad, or do I let the bad guy take over the town and just run off with my lady love? And of course, he decides to stay and fight, and things happen. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 also. I definitely don't think it's going to be everybody's cup of tea, and I will tell you it took me a really long time to read it, but that was largely because it was an ebook and not because of anything I thought the book did wrong. The author is one I really like, Johnny B. Truant. I love his voice. I love his dialogue. I love his world building, although I did feel sometimes in the book like wasn't really sure how the world worked. But I was here for the dialogue and the characters. I love the unicorn. It's a unicorn who can talk, and he is sassy, and he is not the kind of unicorn you expect a unicorn to be. And I loved the unicorn. I liked the sheriff guy, although I cannot for the life of me remember his name. And those were kind of the main characters. The plot I didn't care a ton about because it's kind of a Western plot, kind of a fantasy plot, and I don't love high fantasy, and I don't really do Westerns, but I do, like I said, really love this author and their voice and wanted to read this book, and yeah, I enjoyed it. And I will tell you, like, overall, most of the books that I read recently were good books. I have very high ratings, actually, so we've had 1 4-star or 2 4-stars so far. Plus the DNF. All right, so the next book I read is Verity. This is another book that I think I want to devote a whole video to, but the highlights are I gave it a 4 out of 5. It's about an author who is hired to ghostwrite the rest of the series. The original author has been in an accident and is unable to continue the series, And so this ghostwriter is brought in, and while she's looking at the notes, she finds that the the writer had some troubling stuff in their past, and it's kind of one of those reveals of what is happening with the character who is now unwell and unable to be. Some of the highlights of things I did like. I really thought this book went places I didn't expect it to. There is some really dark things, and I really liked that we went there. I didn't necessarily enjoy the journey, but I thought it was great we did. There was a lot more sexual content than I was loving. I didn't really like that. Uh, the girl who's come in starts to fall in love. The writer who's coming in starts to fall in love with the husband of the original writer, and I didn't really like that. Also, the ending is kind of ambiguous, and I am, for anybody who's read the book, I am team letter, although my understanding is that the author has revealed that team book is actually like the truth. And I kind of hate that. That almost ruins the book for me because I don't that just doesn't work for me on a lot of levels. But the other thing I wanted to note about this, and then we will move on, is I did have some struggles with believability, particularly with the author's injuries. The medical personnel, I didn't think did a very good job at their job. And I work in healthcare, so I really felt like it was kind of unrealistic that the healthcare workers didn't do a better job at their job. So, overall, though, I see why people love this book. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was well written. I might read more from this author. I don't know that I'd want to read more romance from her, and my understanding she's largely a romance writer, but I would definitely read more like mystery, thriller, suspense from her. So overall, I enjoyed it. The next book I read was a manga. I Am a Cat Barista. This is a cute, sweet little manga that is literally just people are having a bad day, a cafe appears, a cat serves you coffee and gives you advice about life. I gave it a 4 out of 5. It's wonderful for what it is. Manga is something that I have a lot of struggles with because a lot of times I don't understand things in the manga. I also often have trouble like figuring out who's who, especially when it's in black and white, and this one is in black and white. Luckily, one of our characters is a cat, so I knew who that was. But I really thought this had kind of, it gave me the same feeling that the Tea Dragon Society did. Now, this doesn't have the same level of diversity or anything, but it's just that sweet, cute, calm read that's just a palate cleanser. It was all the good feelings, and I really enjoyed that, and I really needed that at the time that I read this. My daughter's really into manga, so I want to try to include more manga and graphic novels in my reading so that her and I can talk about things. But like I said, I tend to struggle to find things that tick my boxes and really work for me, but this one did. The last book on my list is Death by Smoothie. And this is the most recent book in the Jane Austen mystery series. I have read, I do believe, every book in the series, and I really do enjoy it. In this particular book, Jane Austen, who is our main character, she's a writer. She is asked to help produce a play. And as she is going to do this, one of the actors is killed, and she has to help figure out who done it. I ended up giving this book a 3 out of 5. And it's one of these things where the series can be kind of hit or miss for me on the mystery part of it. The comedy is always good. And that was kind of the case here too. The comedy was a good 5-star. The mystery was a 4-star through most of it. And then we had the reveal, and I hated the reveal with a passion, because I felt like we had a lot of really good candidates to be the killer, and then when the killer was revealed, I didn't think their motive was very strong, and I was really just kind of underwhelmed by the whodunit part of this. But as always, the comedy is good. I will continue to reading it. This one, I think, of the mysteries was the one that I was most disappointed with because it wasn't just like, okay, meh. It was this, I felt like it was almost the worst choice they could have made for the killer. So I had a lot of feelings about that. It is what it is. I do want to mention something that I didn't think about, understand until I had recommended this book to somebody and they kind of mentioned it to me. There is some thin girl hate in this, which is unfortunate in this series, not necessarily this book, a little bit in this book, but definitely not to, but it's a problem throughout the series. So if you have any issues related to body image or weight, there's just some unhealthy weight related and food related conversations, jokes, things that happen in this series as a whole, and somewhat in this book as well. Those were the books I've read. Really briefly, too, I just wanted to remind you all that I am an author. I just put my most recent book, Hunter, up for pre-order. So grab a copy of it today if you enjoy romance. It is a paranormal contemporary about a rock star who's having trouble writing his next song, and he meets a girl who he decides is his muse and also his mate. Unfortunately, she is not extremely excited to be loved by a rock star. Her last relationship was rough. Thank you for joining me today. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. This has been Jane. Bye.